Will the Dallas Cowboys defense dominate on Thanksgiving? We'll discuss that and more on this episode of the Locked On Cowboys podcast.
You are Locked On Cowboys, your daily Dallas Cowboys podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to the Locked On Cowboys podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We'd like to thank you for making us your first listen of the day. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. You can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet, and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Just visit FanDuel.com to get started. Welcome back. I am your host, Marcus Mosher. You can follow me on Twitter at Marcus_Mosher. Joining me today, as always, is Landon McCool. You can follow him on Twitter at McCoolBCB. On today's show, we are previewing the Week 13 matchup between the Cowboys and the Giants. And Landon, I want to start with the Cowboys defense because to me, I thought they were the better of the two units last week. I thought they did a fantastic job against Jaden Daniels. And going into this game, you would think that the Cowboys are going to have an advantage on that side of the ball. Because let me just update the listeners.
Yeah.
So Daniel Jones is off in Minnesota now. Tommy DeVito was the starter last week. He has a forearm injury where he practiced on Monday, didn't practice on Tuesday and Wednesday. Now he's listed as questionable. Drew Lock is expected to be the starting quarterback, but that's not it for the Giants. They have offensive line injuries galore. Andrew Thomas, their all-pro left tackle, he is out for the season. Jermaine Illuminor, who was their starting right tackle, who moved over to left tackle, he's already been ruled out of this game. So you have your third and fourth tackle. On tomorrow's show with Patricia Traina, she mentioned that Tyree Phillips, who's been out of the NFL for a couple of years, is likely to start at left tackle in this game.
Really?
It seems like Dallas should have an advantage here.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. You said you wanted to start with the Cowboys D, and I thought that was because that's really the only interesting unit in this game, to be honest, right?
Yeah.
Like the Dallas Cowboys defense has started to play better and better football. They started to get some more of their stars back. I don't think we're going to get Trayvon Diggs back this week. It sounded like maybe he had a setback in practice this week, but we'll see. But I think, obviously with Parsons and some of the other folks coming back, you got Nealon back now. You're starting to get some more depth on your defensive line. This is a team that's a unit that's starting to feel a lot better about their production, especially against, last week against Washington. And I think, they're looking at this offensive line and they're licking the chops, right? I mean, I think injury and talent is also an issue at certain spots as well. I just think that, with a backup quarterback, a talented running back, but he can't do it on his own without.
By the way, we should mention a short week for a backup quarterback because Drew Lock is only going to have 2 practices to get ready.
Yeah, and he may not have even been the starting quarterback in those practices, right? Like we don't even know, right? So I guess he was definitely on Monday, but I mean he probably had to share some of those snaps on Wednesday yesterday. Yep. So I think it's a tall task for the Giants, in to kind of go into what they're facing on the road. But again, this is also kind of the inverse of what the Cowboys faced last week, right? Like, in some ways you're facing I would say that the Commanders, were viewed as an even more superior team to the Cowboys than we view the Cowboys to the Giants this week.
Sure.
And they were able to overcome injuries and still find a way to win a division game. So I definitely think that this, on paper, you look at this and it is a very much a matchup that the Cowboys are in a good spot for. But let's not, let's let it play out a little bit because we felt that same way about that Washington offense and the Cowboys defense, and it didn't quite play out that way.
This is a game that Micah Parsons should, and I expect him to dominate. Here are the options for tackle. Chris Hubbard, who has been a longtime right tackle, who has a 23.3 pass blocking grade. He was so bad in an earlier game this year that they actually moved a guard out there in the second half because it was horrendous. Joshua Azadota, I believe, who played at North Carolina. He's really more of a guard that they've had to move the tackle.
Oh, yeah, I remember.
And then Evan Neal, who was a healthy scratch for most of the season because he was so bad, is now their starting right tackle, really struggling in pass protection. Again, this is the game where I expect Micah Parsons to be a problem. And now the thing is, can the Cowboys leverage Micah Parsons where other guys can have an impact? Is this a game where Carl Lawson makes plays? Can Osa Odigizua dominate against a pretty weak interior offensive line? They're going to need their pass rush to win big in this one.
Yeah, you're going to need a little bit more out of Nealon than what you got last week. He had a little bit of time to kind of get his legs underneath him. Maybe he'll produce a little bit more. You mentioned Lawson. I think Golston is a guy that, you know, he's going to give some of these guys trouble because he's just a different kind of rusher. And I think, you know, you talk about some of the problems that these young offensive linemen have. It's not even just facing one talented player. I mean, that's a problem enough. But when you rotate guys and they have to see a couple different types of body styles, a couple different types of pass rushers, that also will kind of exacerbate the problem a little bit further for them. So, yeah, I think the Cowboys, one of the things that the Cowboys have been really great about on defense with Zimmer is finding different alignments and formations that allow them to attack the offense the way they want to. I look for that. I will look for that some more this week. I wouldn't be shocked to see some snaps with Parsons lining up over Runyon on the guard, trying to isolate these offensive linemen into silos so that they can then twist and stunt and then, you know, confuse them with movement. So, yeah, I definitely think that this is a game in which Parsons should be able to feast simply because of the weakness of the offensive line, the lack of mobility for the quarterbacks. I mean, not that Drew Lock isn't, you know, athletic, but I mean, we saw Jaden Daniels, who's maybe the faster quarterbacks in the NFL, get absolutely tracked down by Parsons like several different times. So I'm looking for Parsons to eat pretty big.
This is a game in which I think Mike Zimmer can have a lot of fun because, again, you have a lot of shuffling on the offensive line, and it's a short week. I can't imagine they were able to put in a bunch of pass protection stuff with new left tackles and a new right tackle in there. So I don't think you're going to need to blitz to get pressure on Drew Lock, but you're going to be able to, you have to find ways to creatively do it so you can get free rushers. I will say one of the things that makes me really nervous in this game, Landon, is that they have guys that are really good in the open field. And if you don't wrap up and tackle, they can take it to the house, whether that's Tyrone Tracy, Wan'Dale Robinson, Darius Slayton, and of course, Malik Neighbors. I'm curious to see how Mike Zimmer defends Malik Neighbors, because Malik Neighbors, squeaky wheel gets the grease type of game after complaining about the lack of touches in the first half. I think it would be very wise if the Cowboys devoted a lot of attention to him early in the game to try to get him frustrated and see how things go.
Yeah, I mean, I think you mentioned some key points there. Slayton, to me, is a guy who's more of a downfield threat. So I think the Cowboys can kind of eliminate that by just getting to the quarterback quickly, right?
Yep.
Neighbors is a guy that they will have to be focusing on. He's obviously the most talented player on that team. And well, Dexter Lawrence may have something to say about that, but he's the most talented player on that offense for sure. To me, the X factor on that side of the ball is Wan'Dale Robinson because of the ability to, like you said, run in the open field, take a short pass and take it, you know, all the way the distance. The Cowboys are going to be so focused on trying to stop Malik Neighbors, as the Giants are going to be so focused on getting Neighbors the ball, that I think it's going to provide a lot of opportunities for Robinson underneath. The Cowboys need to make sure that they rally to the ball, get him down on the ground, and do not let him break a bunch of tackles, because he can, you know, be the spoiler here and slip through the secondary, and suddenly a 5-yard pass in the flats is a 25-yard touchdown if you're not careful.
And this is where the Cowboys were really good in their first meeting against the Giants. Is Wan'Dale had a bunch of catches, but it was like for 50 yards in this game. So they did a good job of wrapping up. You're going to need to be able to do the same. I think Overshown is going to be really important in this one. He's going to have to fly sideline to sideline and make tackles, wrap up, not overshoot the stuff, right, and create cutback lanes. But his speed is going to be really, really important for the Cowboys getting stops in this game. Let's talk about the Cowboys offense, which is the least exciting unit.
I don't know. It's less exciting, I think, is a fair label.
Yeah, it's fine. Can the Cowboys generate enough offense to win this game on Thursday? We will get to that next. This episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. Prize Picks is the best place to get real money sports action. With over 10 million members and billions of dollars in award winnings, Prize Picks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. You just pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 100 times your cash. Run your game all season long on Prize Picks. Prize Picks is the best way to get action on sport or in sports in most states, including California, Florida, Georgia, and Texas. It's the only real money daily fantasy sports platform with an injury insurance policy, so your lineups stay in play even if one of your players gets injured. If your player leaves in the first half and doesn't return, PrizePicks keeps your lineup alive. Sign up today and get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. Download the PrizePicks app today. Use promo code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Download the app. Use promo code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, run your game. This episode is brought to you by Skylight Frames. Do you struggle to find the perfect gift during the holidays? Maybe gift giving isn't your love language, or maybe you just overthink it and end up not buying anything at all. Or maybe you're trying to buy it for someone like my wife, who is impossible to buy for because she has no interests or hobbies. It's kind of true. And she needs to get some. But I found the perfect gift for her this year. She's absolutely going to love it. It's a Skylight Frame. Skylight Frame is the touchscreen digital photo frame your whole family can use. You can upload thousands of photos with your phone and watch them appear in seconds. It's so easy to use. It takes less than 60 seconds to start up, and there's seamless sharing. You can invite friends and family to easily share photos via the free Skylight mobile app or email. It's a touchscreen frame. It's beautiful. It looks fantastic wherever you put it in your house. Plus, they have a gift mode, which makes it so you can upload pictures before you even give it. When it's unwrapped, the photos are already in the frame. It's absolutely fantastic. And now, as a special limited time offer for our listeners, get $20 off your purchase of a Skylight Frame when you go to skylightframe.com/NFL. That's skylightframe.com/NFL. Get $20 off your purchase at skylightframe.com/NFL. Welcome back to the Locked On Cowboys podcast. We are previewing the Week 13 matchup between the Giants and the Cowboys on Thanksgiving. Later, let's talk about the Cowboys offense, because for most of the game on Sunday against Washington, the offense struggled to get the ball into the end zone. I think it was about 10-9 going into the last 5 minutes of the game. How did the Cowboys score more in this contest?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is really where the kind of injury and talent aspect of the problems on the offensive side kind of rear their head, right? It feels like, you were able to move out in some rookie offensive linemen, and without Tyler Smith and without Zach Martin, you were able to actually move the football. I'm saying surprisingly, without Zach Martin, without Tyler Smith, you were able to move the football. I think where it started to kind of bog down, obviously, is when we got down to the red zone. Things got a little bit more compressed. You started to see a little bit of leakage in the backfield. There were some losses that were happening. So I do think that, maybe getting Tyler Smith back kind of stabilizes things in the front of your pocket, but that doesn't necessarily help with the kind of talent issue that needs to be overcome in the red zone. I think this week, because of who you're playing, you should be able to get by. I think Tolbert and Shoemaker both had touchdowns last week, and I think that they're both players that are trending up a little bit. I think that the Cowboys' best bet is to probably try to score from outside the red zone. Obviously, giving Turpin opportunities in short passes to create long plays, throwing the ball down the field. I mean, even Schoonmaker's touchdown, I think, was outside of the red zone, if I'm not mistaken. So I think that is going to be something that's going to be beneficial for the Cowboys, is taking shots from the high red zone, from just outside the red zone into the end zone. And even if you don't make it, I think it at least kind of helps vertically stretch the field a little bit more, so give you some room underneath, maybe get another first down and then try it again. I just think where they're struggling is getting down to the one and punching it in, right? They've struggled to have the running game to the point where they could actually do something with it. They've struggled to get their offensive line healthy enough to be able to bully guys around. I just think that Zach Martin has been a shell of himself for these last few weeks, so it's hard for him to kind of even get the push that we're used to there. So
they haven't been able to run any screen games because Martin can't move, and that's killed them as well. It seems like they've just gotten stuck at like the 15-yard line multiple times. But I do think in this game they've got to run the ball. Now the Giants have been atrocious stopping the run, which is surprising considering they have Dexter Lawrence, but their edges, Brian Burns and Kayvon Thibodeau, have not held up there well. The linebackers have been an issue. If the Cowboys can run the ball with some success, and again, getting Tyler Smith back should help, I would think they should have some success. Well, where I get really nervous, Landon, is 3rd and 8 or more when Thibodeau and Burns can tee off against your tackles, and then you got Dexter Lawrence up front who you have to double on every snap. Like, that's what you have to avoid in this game.
Yeah, and I think you hopefully you should be able to avoid that because of the reasons you just mentioned, right? Like, I don't think they're not a very good run defense, and I think despite, like you said, having Dexter Lawrence, and I think that the thing that the Cowboys have really kind of shown this last 2 weeks, especially last week, is that they seem to be figuring something out a little bit in the run game. So I expect that the majority of the offense is going to again run through Rico and the run game. But my question is, I don't have questions on whether I think it'll be effective between the 20s. My questions are, what is the run game going to look like when things compress a little bit in the red zone? Are you going to be able to rely on that to get positive gains? Or are you going to have to find a way to throw the football, which is, I think, disadvantageous, obviously for the Cowboys because they're dealing with the backup quarterback.
So Cooper Rush played the Giants back in 2022. I think it was a Sunday night game, and they won that game. And one of the reasons why they won that game is that Rush was comfortable taking shots down the field. I remember there was a big play to CeeDee Lamb down the sideline, and then CeeDee caught a one-handed touchdown a couple plays later. Last week, really the big play that sparked the whole game for them was hitting that 40-yard pass to Jalen Brooks right before halftime to get a field goal. I think Rush has just got to challenge the Giants vertically because the Giants are actually a pretty good tackling team. And if you throw the ball underneath a bunch in this game, hoping to break tackles, it's going to be really hard. But if you can throw the ball down the field against their bad secondary, make a big play, draw a pass interference, and just try to get some cheap yardage, that's how you win this game is, hey, we got a field goal right before halftime. And hey, we ended up scoring a touchdown here because of a 30-yard pass interference call. Like, throw the ball down the field. If it results in a turnover or two, that's fine. Like, I don't think this Giants offense is going to be dynamic enough to put up 25 points and beat you. Take your chances in this one.
Yeah. And I think, to speak on that a little bit, like, I don't think the problem is going to be about generating space for your wide receivers. I think your guys are going to be able to get open. I think the issue is going to be throwing the ball deep, is creating protection for Cooper Rush to throw the ball, right? So when you do it, you may want to, it's going to need to be play action or a designed play where there's misdirection, or what they did last week a little bit. And it'll be interesting to see if maybe they changed Awesome Richards out for Chuma Edoga because of the injury situation. Yeah. What they did last week was they brought in an extra tackle. They brought in a heavy formation.
It's fine.
Blocked it all up, and then only had a couple guys in route, but it still worked, right? You still were able to get down the field and get open. So if the Cowboys are going to take shots down the field, which I totally agree they need to do to win this game, they should do so in a smart manner. Set them up with play action, or give Cooper Rush a heavy protection situation and allow him the time to drop back and throw the ball unimpeded. I think one of the big differences between Cooper and Dak is that we've seen Dak take hits and complete passes down the field because he's just so big and strong that he can, absorb the hit as he's throwing the ball a little bit better. I think with Cooper Rush, it's, he needs that kind of cleaner pocket to hope to get the accuracy that you need to complete the pass. Because that's the other thing. We have seen it sometimes where even with the clean pocket, Cooper just misses him down the field. So got to provide a really great situation for Cooper to be at his best with his technique when he's throwing the ball down the field.
The last little note I want to have here before we move on to predictions is this is the third game for the Cowboys in 10 days, 11 days, right? Because they played the Monday night game and they played a Sunday game. That's 6. And then you play 4 days later. Is there any signs of fatigue? Do they look beat up coming into this game, or do they look fresh compared to the Giants who, I know the Giants are have a little bit more of a break going into this little stretch. But what does it look like? Are they both? Do the Cowboys have more energy because they're home? Does the crowd help ignite them a little bit? Does the win last week give them a little bit more of a pep in their step? That's just one of the several things I'm watching for in this one.
We talk about, or we don't talk about, but folks talk all the time about the existence of momentum. Is it real? Right.
Yeah.
I think that this is where you see momentum actually manifest itself in reality. Is, yeah, all these guys are tired, right? But your attitude and how you feel about what you're doing, and that affects your approach. And I think your approach has a big deal with your actual production. So I do think that the Cowboys, even though they're on less rest, they're reinvigorated with the win that they had. It was unexpected. It's them against the world, and they feel like. I mean, you heard was it Golson at the end of the Sounds of the Sideline? They think they're going to win the next 6 games and go to the playoffs. So. Yeah, whether that's crazy or not, it doesn't matter. Like it's that kind of self.
You need that attitude, right?
Yeah, exactly. That's what you need to be in the NFL, to believe in yourself unreasonably in order to make it, right? In order to beat the odds. So I love it. I think it does make a difference, and I do think, despite having less rest, the Cowboys are the more invigorated team because of the win last week.
Yeah, NFL athletes, or just pro athletes in general, need to have irrational confidence in themselves and in their team. I would say right now the Giants certainly do not have that. If you look at the comments from Malik Neighbors and Dexter Lawrence and some of the other players, whereas you're right, like Micah Parsons is talking about doing something special and dominating the last 6 games, and Golston is talking about going on this winning streak, which again, we can talk about whether that's realistic, but that's what you need.
I love hearing him saying it. Like that's what I want to hear.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, let's break down this game. Who wins the Thanksgiving matchup between the Giants and the Cowboys? We will get to that next. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL, all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. This is a fantastic week of NFL action. Even if the Cowboys end up losing on Thursday, Sunday is going to be a great slate. We've got the Eagles and Ravens in the afternoon. Steelers-Bengals is a fun AFC North matchup. And then Sunday night, 49ers and Bills. Should be a great week of football. Go to FanDuel.com and never waste a hunch, and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Welcome back to the Locked On Cowboys podcast. We'd like to thank you for making us your first listen of the day. For your second listen, check out the new Locked On NFL show. 2 shows every single day. 1 in the morning with Tyler Rowland, 1 in the afternoon with Tony Wiggins for some real NFL talk. Available wherever you get your podcasts. We also want to mention that we have an additional podcast coming out for you in your audio feeds. It is the Locked On Dallas postcast with Jeff Biggs, who will be breaking down this Cowboys-Giants game as soon as it's over. So it's available in your Locked On Cowboys podcast feed. You don't need to do anything. You'll see it on there. Not available on YouTube. Go check out the Locked On Dallas YouTube channel there. Landon.
Also, yes, we have the NFC Squad show. And guess what, guys? Because the Cowboys beat the Washington Commanders last week, I am the host of the NFC Squad show this week. You guys, it should be dropping today, I think. So it'll also be on our feed. So definitely make sure you check it out. It was a ton of fun to record.
Lots of football content for you Cowboy fans. All right. Before we make our predictions, I wanted your prediction on something else. If the Cowboys win this game, what is the narrative about the Cowboys kind of going into the final 5 games of the season? Do you think people are going to be talking about, hey, let's look at their schedule? Could they go on a potential run? Or is it just more of, hey, that was a nice win. You beat up on some divisional teams?
I think it's going to be split, much like a lot of the reaction this season has been. I think that there's still going to be a group of fandom that's going to be mad at the Cowboys for not tanking and for not, going over Travis Hunter or whoever your favorite top pick is, right? And I think that the other half of Cowboys fandom is going to be like, where was this a month ago? No. Yeah. I really do believe that, like, the Cowboys themselves are probably the only folks who like are on board with the idea that they're going to make some kind of run and like,
Probably.
you know what I'm saying? Like, I think at this point, most Cowboys fans have kind of resigned themselves to this being sort of a lost season in that sense, right? In sort of the playoff run,
I think most of them have, yeah.
Yeah. So I think that how they react to this will be, some of them will be upset that they're not getting closer to the draft pick they want. Some folks will be happy, but also just like, tempered with disappointment that this wasn't something that could happen earlier. I think the other thing too is it's just a shame, that Dak is out for the season. I mean,
their
that's
schedule's
obvious.
so soft at the end of the year.
Right. Like, because if he could come back, let's say they won this game and we could get Dak back like in the following week or the week after, and the way that the conference has gone playoff wise, the Cowboys absolutely could be back in this thing. Like, if they could have figured something out on offense, that Dak could have gotten healthy. The way the defense is trending now, the schedule, the way your offensive linemen are kind of developing, your running back situation has gotten better. Like a lot of the institutional problems that were around when Dak was healthy have gotten a lot better since Dak has been hurt. So, and not because of Dak being hurt, but just because the timeline of things, right? Like the Zimmer's, defense becoming more ingrained, the offensive linemen having more experience, So I just think that it's too bad that he isn't able to come back, because I think if that were the case, Cowboys Nation would probably be feeling pretty decent about the team that's 1-2 and has a kind of soft schedule to finish the season.
So again, this is so pie in the sky, but just
of course,
if the Cowboys would happen to beat the Giants, I don't think people are talking playoffs yet. But they put their next game is Monday night against the Bengals. So you'll have 11 days to get ready for that team or for that game. And I think the Bengals are, I wrote this in the 33rd team. I think the Bengals are going to lose at the Steelers this week. They'll be 4-8. They'll be out of the playoff picture in the AFC. I think if the Cowboys were to win that game, that's when people start to talk about them, because your final 4 games are at the Panthers, home against the Buccaneers, at the Eagles, home against the Commanders. The Buccaneers and the Commanders are the only other 2 teams that are really competing for the 7th seed right now. And you've already beat the Commanders once. And the Buccaneers record right now, I believe, is 4. Yeah, they're 5-6. They're 5-6. So you could technically have a tiebreaker with both those teams. Again, very pie in the sky, but like,
it's crazy though.
I mean, you could get to 9-8 wins and have tiebreakers over the Eagles, over the Commanders and the Bucs, and make the playoffs. But again, when you have a backup quarterback, you're susceptible to lose any game in any week. Would it shock me if they lost this week against the Giants? No. My prediction, Landon, is that they are going to win. But I don't think people are going to be talking about them in the playoffs at all, because I just don't think they're a playoff caliber team.
Not to get too far ahead of ourselves, but does your prediction for that Carolina game change a little bit since you watched the Kansas City Carolina game and Bryce seems to have figured a few things out at quarterback?
They are playing a lot better. That's no longer a gimme game.
Gimme. Yeah.
In fact,
this feels more like a gimme game than the Carolina game.
In fact, I bet you Dallas won't even be favored in that game.
I wouldn't be shocked, honestly. Especially if they play good football again this week. It's surprising, honestly, how much they've turned it around.
So who do you have winning this game?
I'm picking the Cowboys. I mean, I think they may win pretty handedly, honestly. If they can, I mean, I don't know why I feel like that. Maybe because of the game last week, but they have played terrible at home. Like, they just have not played well at home. I think their average loss at home, the average score at home is -20, like loss in points differential. So I don't know why I would feel confident that this is suddenly turned around, but I think it has something to do with the fact that it just feels like improvements around the Cowboys have been happening in a bunch of different areas and kind of all just incremental. And it does feel like we were surprised by how this team played against Washington, right? Like I think that was a better than we expected team that showed up, especially on the defensive side in Washington. Maybe they're continuing to get better in that same way, like not huge leaps and bounds in any one area, but just, hey, the defensive end situation has gotten a little bit better. Hey, the cornerback situation has gotten a little bit better. Hey, the offensive line maybe is figuring some things out. Hey, the running back's playing better. Maybe all that little, improvements in all these different areas will start adding up to real gains. and you're playing a weaker team this week. Both of you are on a short week. So, I'm going to pick the Cowboys despite the fact that they haven't won a game at home yet. And I think that they win handily. I think it's going to be something like 24-17, but I bet that they have control of the game for longer than that.
What I love about this game is if the Cowboys win, you and I are talking like playoff chances and scenarios on Monday. If the Cowboys lose, we're trying to figure out, okay, hey, how high do they have to get Travis Hunter? Are they back inside the top 3? It's the greatest time ever to be a Cowboy fan.
Anything can happen. We could be talking about how ridiculous it is that fans are going to yell at us for wanting a Michigan defensive tackle.
Exactly.
Defensive tackle. Or we could be talking about this playoff run that we're on our way to.
Exactly.
The NFL is incredible.
Yeah. All right. That is it for today's show. We want to thank you for making Locked On Cowboys your first listen every single day. Go check out the channel on YouTube. It's available wherever you get your podcasts. On tomorrow's show, we have the crossover show with Patricia Traina, who I've never seen more depressed and sad in my life. I kind of felt bad for Patricia, but not really. She's a Giants fan. So go check that out tomorrow, wherever you get your podcast. Follow Landon on Twitter at McCoolBCB. I am at Marcus_Mosher. Enjoy your Thanksgiving, and we will see you right back here on Friday.